Thanks for watching the video podcast. Of course, if you go on our website, theyoungturks.com, you can get the whole 3-hour show.
Plus an uncensored post-game show.
That's if you become a member on theyoungturks.com.
Tell me that you care, but when I need you,
Well, the Young Turks.
baby,
I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'm thoroughly discouraged. Sometimes I get discouraged. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. And today, I'm not even convinced that that scaffold sways the future. So, Ben Bernanke confirmed 70-30, not even really close. They didn't have to get into any shenanigans. They had, on the filibuster vote, and there was one, it was 77-23. So they didn't even need those extra 7 senators flipping over and saying, well, let him pass by, but I'll do a symbolic vote no, etc. None of it was even remotely close. Score another one for the establishment. You know, on days like this, I think, who are we kidding, man? What are we going to do? A ragtag bunch of people, the actual population of the country that's middle class and poor, or sometimes even upper class, but working as a small business owner or a dentist somewhere. You think we're going to overthrow the establishment? You think we had a shot at not putting Bernanke as the head of the Fed again? We didn't have any shot. We had no chance. And, you know, on days like this, I think, well, what have we ever really won? You know, I remember joyous days, and if you think back on it, what were we joyous about? You remember? Of course, the night of the 06 elections, when the Democrats, won so many seats in the House and the Senate, and then in 08, gigantic wins again in the House and the Senate for the Democrats, and for Obama. And people cried, and I remember Jesse Jackson's tears in Chicago, and we were all overjoyed. But it turned out to be a mirage. We never really won on any policy matters. We won some political elections, but did that translate into policy? So when the Republicans win, it always translates into policy. Cheney and Bush got rammed through the largest tax cuts in United States history. The rich got richer. They wanted to go to war against Iraq, a country that didn't invade us. They went to war against Iraq. I can go on all day long. Whatever they wanted, they got, right? Now, Obama promises changed, and we were going to do all this, and the Democrats, and then eventually they had a 60-seat majority in the Senate. They were unstoppable. And what did we get? Lilly Ledbetter. Okay, if you don't know, that's a minor bill that passed in the beginning of the administration. It's a good bill, and that's why I bring it up, about women being entitled to equal pay. God bless. Incredibly easy victory. But hey, look, we took it. Well, all right, so that's one. We got one on the board. What else? What else? Healthcare reform, public option, Medicare buy-in, single payer, anything? Financial reform yet? Nothing? No. The banks already got the money. Did we get regulation? No. Did we get reform? No. What do we have? We're still in Iraq. Okay, but we're going to leave a couple of years from now, I hope. Afghanistan, the troops have been increased. We've got an escalation in Afghanistan. What did we win? What did we win? Oh, here's why Bernanke was a done deal a long, long, long time ago. Because Ben Bernanke is not the head of the Fed because he is a genius. It's not because he's the best economist in the country. It's not because he's most right about how to prevent a financial collapse. Well, no one in their right mind can make that argument. He was in charge when we had the financial collapse, so obviously he had no idea how to prevent one. Some argue that he knows how to handle one after he's created it. Great. Okay. So is he there because he's the most successful or the best economist in the country? Absolutely not. He's there because that's where the bankers want him. The bankers make money by Ben Bernanke falling asleep at the wheel. The more he dozes off and doesn't do a damn thing, the more money they make in the short run for themselves. And that is why Ben Bernanke was reconfirmed. Now remember, Ben Bernanke is a Republican. He was not just appointed to the Fed by George W. Bush. He was George W. Bush's chief economist in his administration before that. He's a Republican through and through. So, during the Republicans, Ben Bernanke wins because he's going to let the banks do whatever they want. During the Democrats, look at that. Ben Bernanke wins again. Why does he win? Because that's how those guys make money. Now, where do they make that money? Off our ass. We put in billions, and many people would argue trillions of dollars into the bailouts, etc. Look, we're easy targets, man. You know that poker term? If you're sitting at a table and you can't tell who the sucker is, you're it. Okay? We're sitting at this table with, J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, etc. We're looking around going, wait, who's the sucker? Oh, damn it, it's me. I'm the sucker at the table. We never had a chance, man. Look, you know me, every day I wake up hopeful, and maybe that's why I get more disappointed than the average bear. Okay, and so do I think we'll win at the end? I do, man. After all this time, I do. But it's going to be a long, hard slog, as Rumsfeld once said. It's going to take us a long, long time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of battle, because Obama ain't it. He is a classic politician. He's going to give you a little bit of this, and he's going to give you a little bit of that. He's going to try to please everybody, but the one thing he is not going to do is rock the boat. I would love to eat my words. I don't believe in God, but I pray that I eat my words. Okay, but I saw that man yesterday. I've seen him all year long. I saw him push through Bernanke like he was possessed, like he didn't push through healthcare reform or financial reform or anything else. But when Bernanke's ass was on the line, they roared like lions. Obama and Rahm Emanuel and Tim Geithner and the Democratic leadership. This man will get through. Why did they do that? Because they are the establishment. They're not change. We're talking about change? There ain't no change. There ain't no change. I mean, you can't get a better example than Bernanke. He was, like I said, under the Republicans and under the Democrats. You still have the same guy in charge. He's the one that makes trillion-dollar decisions. You think that's not a critical player? And not a damn thing changed. If Obama wanted to pick an economist to run the Fed who knew how to keep the banks in check, he had plenty of choices. Probably the most renowned economist in the world, Joseph Stiglitz, former chief economist of the World Bank, chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Nobel Prize winner, etc. You think he's going to pick Stiglitz? He ain't going to pick Stiglitz. He'd get tough on the banks. He'd regulate them to make sure they didn't take risks with our money. Can't have it. Can't do it. Can't play with it. Can't win with it. Can't make money off the American taxpayer with it. Okay? You think he was going to take Bill Black, Elizabeth Warren, all these people? No way. No way. It was always going to be Bernanke. That's why I am this close to totally and utterly giving up on Obama. Now, some people, I've been writing about this all day, on Twitter, et cetera, right? Some people accusing me of being a Republican now. You serious, man? You got to be kidding me. Look, that is the most disingenuous party I have ever seen in my lifetime. Every one of those guys is bought and paid for. Every one of them. Later in this program, I'm going to break down for you how they intend to deceive you, okay? So there's no hope in any Republican. That's crazy talk, right? Me, a Republican these days. That's a good one, right? And so is Obama better than Bush and Cheney? Yes, he is. And I can list you 100 ways that he's better, right? But is he going to change the system? Is he going to make sure that the little guy doesn't get screwed out of his money? In that critical way, no. He's not going to do it. And so today, I am quite thoroughly discouraged. All right, he's got 3 years to prove me wrong. Let's see how he does. And all 3 of those years, the man at the head of the Fed will be Ben Bernanke, making those decisions. Look, I had more quotes for you guys. I had everything prepared, and like Chris Dodd coming out with his excuses. He's one of the guys that pushed through Bernanke. Chris Dodd, the politician who during the primaries pretended to be like the most progressive guy in the world, and oh yeah, I'm going to fight for the Constitution and this and that, and then he's going to retire and make sick money as a lobbyist for Wall Street, right? So right now, Chris Dodd ain't got no interest in reform. He's got an interest in protecting the bankers' asses. So he comes out with Bernanke. He says, no. If we don't confirm Bernanke, the markets will get jittery. Yeah. Wall Street will get jittery. That's the point, okay? Now, do I want the stock market to take a temporary dip? I don't. I mean, it's, again, no interest in being punitive, right? That's not what it's about. But they'd get jittery because they know that their opportunity to keep ripping us off is closing if Bernanke didn't get confirmed. That would be a good thing, not a bad thing. It's just an excuse, but I'm tired of it. I'm not even going to go into all the little details of who voted which way and why they voted and their nonsense, lies, and excuses. All right. I got to keep it real with you today. That's what's happening, okay? And look, I got more on the Obama speech, little nonsense stories, to be honest with you, okay? I want to do those because they're a little fun, right? But, and I talked last night a lot about the Obama speech. But, you know, it's like sometimes you see a movie and you think, you know, I kind of like it. And then a week later you think, man, that really grew on me. I think I really like that movie. Or the reverse, you didn't really like it. And a week later you're like, man, that movie sucked, right? That's how I feel about Obama's speech. Last night I didn't really like it. And then poll numbers came out today, and don't make me go in here and quote them, okay? So they showed my interpretation was not shared by the rest of the country. CBS poll, Insta poll right after the debate, people loved it. They got high on the drug of Obama again. They were like, oh, what a great speech. Oh, that's so great. He's so bipartisan. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, he's reaching out to the Republicans, and he's going to bring change. I can see it. It's just around the corner. Change. Hope. Oh, Obama. Okay. Can you sense I'm not believing anymore? So, no. The more I think about that speech, the more nonsense it was. Almost 60%, I won't say all, I don't want to exaggerate, I want to tell you as it is. About 60% of the new proposals were exactly what a Republican president would do. The reaching out to the Republicans is hopeless, ridiculous, and it's not meant to reach out to the Republicans. It's meant to strike so-called centrist deals, which are in fact corporate deals, okay? So they can turn around and go, oh, we were bipartisan. You won't believe the bipartisan agreement we had to make sure that corporate America wins again. All right. Now, I'll get to Obama's speech and the Republican response, because that was very important, in a little bit. But when we come back, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz joins us. Ought to be interesting. Young Turks.
Where we headed, the #1 progressive talk show, don't you forget it. That's right.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. JR's producing and Jesus is directing. A bit of a somber day, if you ask me. Ben Bernanke got confirmed, 70-30. I really didn't like Obama's speech last night, although the American people did. I would like to tell you things as they are, not as we wish them to be. I wish that the American people could have seen through that speech a little bit better, but they were very impressed by it. And that's not such a bad thing. I don't mind, it being favorably received. And if he could actually do it and get bipartisanship and the Republicans to sign on for real change, well, then I would love it. But I don't think that's the way it's going to break down. Now, other sad notes from yesterday, and it was, in my estimation, quite a sad day yesterday and today. J.D. Salinger has passed away. He was the age of 91 and, of course, the author of Catcher in the Rye. And kind of a fitting day for him in some ways to pass away. Of course, wish could have lived longer. But the book was known for the main character's disdain for phonies. And boy, do we have a lot of phonies in politics. There's no question about that. And so as I was reading, Salinger's life story again, and reading about Holden Caulfield again, and reminding myself, and I've read the book a couple of times. I like to say that because I think it's one of the very few books I've read a couple of times. So And then I was looking around at all the phonies, and we've got a great example of that coming up for you in Bob McDonnell, the man who delivered the rebuttal to the State of the Union for the Republicans. We're going to earn our money today by breaking that apart for you guys and telling you what the real motivations are and who his real backers are. Okay, so that's coming up in a little while. But, you know, just a quick note on Salinger before we move on from that. You know, he was a recluse. Everybody knows this. And then he was afraid of being famous. He thought people were going to, you know, talk about, you know, his private life and that he was going to get judged. That's the way it looked like from the outside, right? And he was right to be worried about it, because then people wound up, you know, this woman hooked up with him in the 1970s after his first couple of marriages, and then she writes a book about their sex life, right? And about he was this in bed and he wasn't that in bed, and he did this right, but he did that wrong. And he's like, well, that's why I stay in a bunker. Okay, he literally had a bunker in his house where he would write. Apparently, there's at least 11 books he's written that he kept in a safe and never published, because he loved to write. But he just didn't want to deal with the criticism and the judgment, etc., from the rest of the world. And you see in Catcher in the Rye, he says, you know, the main character, which of course is, you know, I'm sure J.D. Salinger felt very sympathetic, empathetic towards, obviously, since he wrote it. Says, you know, that his dream is to build a cabin somewhere where no one can bother him, okay, and then he doesn't have to deal with these phonies in the world. And so he wrote those books and he put them away. And then he said, you know, of course he loved children and he thought they were his best friends and his real allies. It reminded me of Michael Jackson a little bit, not in a bad way, but in a good way, you know, that he wanted to maintain innocence, right? Now, his own children didn't feel as good about him. Apparently, they thought he was an inattentive father, and guess what they did? Of course, they wrote a book. And so in the book, they talk about how Salinger drank his own urine and spoke in tongues. Okay, I mean, that's why the guy didn't want to get out of his bunker, okay, because you're going to put all this stuff out there. Look, his kids dealt with what they dealt with. I'm not begrudging them. If they had a crappy childhood and they think it's on their dad, hey, that's their perfect right to feel that way, and that might very well be true, right? But for my purposes, I don't give a damn what Salinger drank, and I don't care, you know, what he spoke in. Now, if he's speaking in tongues and he wants to run for office, then I got a problem. Then you're gonna have to deal with me, okay? But if he's a writer, leave the guy alone, man. Everybody's allowed to be as eccentric as you want to be, and so maybe he was a little touched, but he wrote great books. And you know how many copies Catcher in the Rye sold? Yeah, only 60 million. So, JD, if you're listening to me, and if I'm right, you're not. But if you are, hey, listen, man, thanks for writing a couple of nice books. I hope to read some of your others. All right. Now, also Howard Zinn passed away. So, I'm telling you, not a good day. Howard Zinn is a legendary historian. We actually really recently had him on the program. You should go back and watch that interview. We got it on TYT interviews on YouTube. I'm going to go back and watch that interview because I want to hear from him again. And he wrote a People's History. And originally, that was only supposed to sell 5,000 copies. It was an alternate version of history. Not that it was the wrong version, or it was just a different version than the one we always got. And the ones we had before Howard Zinn, Christopher Columbus is a hero, and he's a conqueror, and he came, and he's a discoverer, and before him, no one lived here, and then after him, everything was great. And Zinn was like, yeah, I don't think that's how it went down. Let me tell you the other side of the story. The other side of the story is, when he came here, he butchered the Native Americans. Now, the thing is, both sides are right to some degree. I'm glad Columbus came over here because it wound up leading to a set of events where I eventually came here, okay? And I rather like it in America. And that's part of the discussion that I had with Howard Zinn when he was on the program a couple of months ago. Might not have even been that long. Might have been just 6 weeks or so. And, but the other side is also true, which is he did butcher the Native Americans, and if you don't teach people that, well, you're doing them a disservice, because their real history is ugly in a lot of ways and messy in a lot of ways, but it is what it is, and there's something to be learned from it. And from my understanding is that the truth shall set you free. So we should learn both sides, obviously. And, you know, as you read the personal history of Zinn, you can't help but love the guy. Always had trouble with authority, but his students loved him. And people that were, you know, that worked with him loved him, except if they were higher ups. Because why? He always challenged authority, right? So he went to go work at Spelman, which was an all-black women's college, okay? So he goes down there, and he's originally, his parents are Jewish immigrants from New York. He was born in 1922, and so he goes down there and he teaches. And eventually he gets in trouble with the higher-ups, and they fire him. Why? Because he challenged them to be part of the civil rights movement, and they wanted to remain neutral. I mean, you read stories like that, and how do you not love the guy, right? And he challenged everybody to do right and to think of different perspectives, etc. And he affected a lot of people, including famous people like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who lived actually near him apparently in Massachusetts, included him in some of their movies and mentioned him in Good Will Hunting. And they really recently did a documentary, which is what we had him on to talk about, which is on television now. And Bruce Springsteen very much affected by him, but so were many other people. So the People's History, which the main book that he wrote that everybody knows him for, was supposed to sell 5,000. It wound up selling over 1 million by the time it was 2003. So what we need more in this world is people like Howard Zinn to take on the establishment, to challenge authority, and to tell it like it really is, no matter what the consequences are. So I'm very glad to have talked with him before he passed. So now, we have these legends, right? And understand, history applies to everybody, and the fact that it's ugly and messy applies to everybody. Howard Zinn's not a saint, and J.D. Salinger's certainly not a saint, but they did some good things that reached out to people and that convinced them to do right, you know, in my opinion, and brought us a little closer to the truth. So now, instead, we today are surrounded, of course, by a plentitude of phonies. Unfortunately, in some ways, perhaps a lot of ways, one of those is Barack Obama. Now, why do I say that? Well, many reasons, but the one I'm going to concentrate on today is, so yesterday he gives a speech saying, you know what, these lobbyists, they're not part of our administration, and we're on the lookout for them, and we're coming for them, and we're not going to do business the old way and have the special interest decide how legislation is going to get done. That was last night. This morning, he invited lobbyists to the White House. Okay. Now, look, keep it fair. Okay, so is it okay to talk to lobbyists every once in a while? Sure. You know, and should you get the perspective of corporations from time to time, as well as other shareholders, you know, unions, the American people, you know, senior citizens? Yeah, of course, right? But this is a little craven, right? This is a little too obvious. This is a little too blatant. Even the lobbyists are tired of it. Let me quote you from The Hill, which of course covers Capitol Hill, that newspaper. It says, some lobbyists say they are extremely frustrated with the White House for criticizing them and then seeking their feedback. Others note that Democrats on Capitol Hill constantly urge them to make political donations. One lobbyist said, quote, bash lobbyists, then reach out to us. Bash lobbyists, while I have received 4 Democratic invitations for fundraisers. So I know part of it is just realpolitik, and you know, you got to raise money and you got to cater to the lobbyists a little bit and you got to listen to them a little bit because they represent important interests. But at the same time, there's an ugly side to it. And the ugly side is, hey, look, we'll tell the American people we're on their side and not on the lobbyist side. But meanwhile, will we collect a lot of money from lobbyists? Hell yeah. Will we listen to them? Unfortunately, and that's the critical part. Hell yeah. I mean, the lobbyists are the ones that wrote the health care reform bill. There's a provision that was, again, just like in the Bush administration, now in the Obama administration, that says the government cannot negotiate with pharmaceutical companies to lower drug prices. Who do you think wrote that? You think an average person wrote that? Oh, no, I'd like to pay hundreds of billions of dollars more. No, don't let the government negotiate for lower prices for Americans. Of course a lobbyist wrote that. Bush signed on to it. Obama signed on to it. Do you see change? No. What you see is lobbyists. So he gives you a pretty speech about how he's going to go after lobbyists. And then in the morning, he literally goes after lobbyists, saying, oh, please, 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 can you come over to the White House? Rahm Emanuel's looking to do some fundraising. It's going to be great. Okay, now, they're not doing fundraising at the White House, okay? But that's how it works. They come over and they listen. Okay, how would you like to, screw over the next bill and make it as good for your interests and as bad for the American interest as you possibly can? Great. All right. Where do I sign? All right, now, you go donate to that congressman, that senator, and that congressman, and we'll beat the Republicans. That's how this game is played. And that's how it got played on us again last night and today. So when you hear Democrats talking about, oh, we're going after the lobbyists, understand they mean something entirely different. They're going after their money. All right. I got more where that came from. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Listen, there's about 1.5 million stories that I wanted to get to today on the program that I didn't get to as far as politics is concerned. I'm dying to do the third hour with Anna, but I got to do one thing I promised you. So we're going to do one more political segment here before we move on to entertainment and pop culture stuff. And that's the story of the Republican response to the State of the Union speech. Bob McDonnell is the governor of Virginia, and he gave the Republican response to Barack Obama last night, and I thought it was, in many ways, brilliant. Now, before you get excited, okay, I don't mean that it was brilliant in how correct it was. It was brilliant in how they pulled it off, the level of deception, and how well they did their marketing. So, we begin with the first clip here at the very beginning of the speech. I instantly knew it was going to be a hit. How? Let's watch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bob McDonnell. 11 days ago, I was honored to be sworn in as the 71st governor of Virginia. I'm standing in the historic House chamber of Virginia's capital, a building designed by Virginia's second governor, Thomas Jefferson. It's not easy to follow the President of the United States, and my 18-year-old twin boys have added pressure to me tonight by giving me exactly 10 minutes to finish before they leave to go watch SportsCenter.
All right. Now, what happened there that impressed me so much? Well, for 7 straight years, we've been covering the State of the Union on this show. And every year we say, why don't they do it in front of an audience? Not the State of the Union, the response to it. Because the State of the Union has all the applause and the pageantry and the President of the United States of America, and then you go to the response and it's usually a guy with, the look of a deer stuck in the headlights. Remember the year Pelosi and Reid did it together? Pelosi's like looking like this the whole time, and then Tim Kaine, the governor of Virginia, did it one year and he had the people's eyebrow. He had like this Christmas setup in the background, and he kept lifting his eyebrow, and it was awkward. And the whole time, Ben and Michael and I would say, why don't you bring a crowd in so it could have the similar feel to the State of the Union? Boom, Bob McDonnell did it, okay? And it looked 100 times better. And then you look at all the little details. He has an African-American woman behind him. He has an Asian man behind him. He brought in his kids, mentioned his kids throughout the speech, showed them. He's packed a room with friendly audience. I don't know if they're just Republicans or if Democrats also joined in and were way too easy to applaud to Governor McDonnell. But the stagecraft was perfect. And he's smooth. It was a nice joke about SportsCenter. So already he's warmed up the audience. And I thought, uh-oh, we got trouble on our hands. This guy's a good politician. That doesn't mean he's right, as we're about to show you. Let's go to clip number 2.
Today, the federal government is simply trying to do too much. Last year, we were told that massive new federal spending would create more jobs immediately and hold unemployment below 8%. In the past year, more than 3 million people have lost their jobs, and yet the Democratic Congress continues deficit spending, adding to the bureaucracy, and increasing the national debt on our children and our grandchildren. The amount of debt is on pace to double in 5 years and triple in 10. The federal debt is now over $100,000 per household. This is simply unsustainable. The president's partial freeze announced tonight on discretionary spending is a laudable step, but a small one. The circumstances of our time demand that we reconsider and restore the proper limited role of government at every level.
All right, so what did he do there? First, he put all the debt on Obama. Oh, look at all this crushing debt we have. And then he took the spending freeze, which is really a Republican proposal. John McCain proposed it during the campaign, and Obama said it was unacceptable. So Obama gives in to the Republicans, says, okay, I'll do your spending freeze. And what does Bob McDonnell do? He goes, ba-ding. It's small. It's laudable. Good job. You see, I'm being bipartisan. But it's tiny, given the giant debt he has. What he doesn't tell you is that the giant debt was given to him largely by George W. Bush. $1.2 trillion in debt handed off, indisputable number, when Barack Obama came into office, done by Republicans, right? And then he says, you know what? We've got to limit government. The government is the real problem. Now, that's where the real trick comes into play. Because, you see, the guys behind Bob McDonnell are giant corporations who don't want you to limit their risk-taking. I'm going to tell you exactly who's behind him in a little bit. But watch him build on this theme. Let's go to clip number 3.
Without reform, the excessive growth of government threatens our very liberty and our prosperity. In recent months, the American people have made clear that they want government leaders to listen and then act on the issues most important to them. We want results, not rhetoric. We want cooperation, not partisanship.
I love that. He doesn't want partisanship. That's why every single Republican senator votes against every single bill that Obama puts together, and congressman too. There was one congressman from Louisiana that briefly voted with Obama and then changed his vote later. Okay? So he sounds good. He's a good-looking guy. He's got the crowd. Everybody's pumped up. They don't want partisanship. What do they want? They want liberty and prosperity. That's what he said. Now, how are we going to get liberty and prosperity? It turns out by making sure we never touch corporate America or regulate them. Let's go to clip number 4.
There is much common ground. All Americans agree that we need a healthcare system that is affordable, accessible, and high quality. But most Americans do not want to turn over the best medical care system in the world to the federal government. Republicans in Congress have offered legislation to reform health care without shifting Medicaid costs to the states, without cutting Medicare, and without raising your taxes. And we will do that by implementing common sense reforms, like letting families and businesses buy health care insurance policies across state lines, and ending frivolous lawsuits against doctors and hospitals that drive up the cost of your health care. And our solutions aren't 1,000-page bills that no one has fully read after being crafted behind closed doors with special interests. In fact, many of our proposals are available online at solutions.gop.gov, and we welcome your ideas on Facebook and Twitter.
Seems so open. He's listening to your tweets. He's listening to you on Facebook. He's got a website, and his plan is so simple. Well, I've seen the Republican plan. We broke it down for you on the show. It's simple because it doesn't cover anyone. You know, it doesn't even get rid of pre-existing conditions. But he said in the beginning, oh, everybody wants health care reform. Everybody. Except when the Republicans were in charge for 8 years, they never proposed the bill. Not one. Didn't care. And wanted to maintain the system exactly as it is. He says we don't raise taxes and that there's no government involvement. Yeah, of course. You don't raise taxes. You don't do any of those things because you don't really have a health care reform bill. What they want to do is no government, no government. Why? Because if there's no government, the private insurance companies that are paying Bob McDonnell's bills and all the Republicans' bills continue to make a giant amount of money. And by the way, the one he mentioned 2 specific proposals. One is we get rid of frivolous lawsuits. Now, that's what they say every single time. There is some merit to it, but it's a tiny percentage of the overall health care cost. I would sign on to it tomorrow if that was part of a real compromise, okay? The second thing he mentioned is wonderfully deceptive. He says, we would let people buy insurance across state lines. I originally liked that idea because maybe that helps break up the monopoly, until we found out the real version, written by the Republicans, allows the health insurance companies to sell across state lines, but much more importantly, to pick any state they like to be headquartered in, and then sell to other states. Because if they pick the state that they're headquartered in, then they could pick the state with no regulations. So then they have even less regulations to hem them in to charge you even more money. You see, when you look under the rock, Bob McDonnell might look good and he's got a good setup, but when you lift that rock up, oh, it's nasty underneath. He's not interested in helping you at all. Let's go to clip number 5.
We applaud President Obama's decision to deploy 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan. We agree that victory there is imperative for national security. But we have serious concerns over the recent steps the administration has taken regarding suspected terrorists. Americans were shocked on Christmas Day to learn of the attempted bombing of a flight to Detroit. This foreign terrorist suspect was given the same legal rights as a U.S. citizen and immediately stopped providing critical intelligence. The Senator-elect Scott Brown has said, we should be spending taxpayer dollars to defeat terrorists, not to protect them.
All right, this one's easier. Just a flat-out lie. Made it up. Stop giving critical intelligence. There's no report of intelligence saying from the intelligence community, from anywhere in the government, that said that that suspect had not been debriefed enough, had not given enough intelligence, and that, or that when he switched over to the federal authorities to be tried, that he stopped giving intelligence. Not a shred of truth to it, okay? He just says it, like, okay, well, there it is. And then, of course, you know, the way he frames it is, should we be helping terrorists or should we be fighting them? People are like, oh, well, I guess we should be fighting them, right? But what he really means, and what the Republican proposals are, is we should be torturing terrorists, and that we should never bring them to justice. We should hold them indefinitely and not bring them to actual trials. Now, when you explain it that way, what the reality is, it doesn't look as good. Finally, he's going to go back to his tried and true theme of get the government out so corporations can make more money. Clip number 6.
Here at home, government must help foster a society in which all our people can use their God-given talents and liberty to pursue their great American dream. Republicans know that government cannot guarantee individual outcomes, but we strongly believe that it must guarantee equality of opportunity for all. That opportunity exists best in a democracy which promotes free enterprise, economic growth, strong families, and individual achievement. Many Americans are concerned about this administration's effort to exert greater control over car companies, banks, energy, and health care. But over-regulating employers won't create more employment. Overtaxing investors won't foster more investment. Top-down, one-size-fits-all decision-making should not replace the personal choices of free people in a free market, nor undermine the proper role of state and local governments in our system of federalism. As our founders clearly stated, and we governors clearly understand, government closest to the people governs best.
Oh, sounds so good. By the people, for the people. He said free enterprises, free markets, free people exercising their God-given talents and to get individual achievement. Or we allow the banks to take any kind of leverage they want with our money, lose all that money, and then we give it back to them. Taxpayer money. Does that sound like the bankers earned it with their God-given talent and their brave individual choices of freedom and liberty? No, they took it from us, okay? And he says, no, you don't want to overregulate those employers, though. That's the number one problem. Interesting that he said that. So, you know, all this setup, it must have cost a lot of money because he's not just a guy in a room. He's got all these people, and they blasted out in the media all these notices about what Bob McDonnell was going to do. Well, some enterprising folks at Think Progress found out how he funded all of this. And he funded it with McDonnell's Opportunity Virginia PAC. Again, sounds very good. Opportunity. So it must have been real Americans that gave to that PAC that made that speech possible, right? Not the corporations he's trying to protect. Oh, well, you look at this. 53% of the funds given to that PAC were given by banks and financial institutions. Funny how he protected those banks and shrouded them in the American flag and freedom and liberty while they take our money. He didn't tell you that in the speech, did you? Did he? 6% of it was given by the insurance companies, 19% of it was given by the coal companies. In another part of the speech, he said, we have to use all of the energy that is here in America. Coal, oil, more offshore drilling, he wanted, of course. Retail gave 8%, alcohol 3%, tobacco 8%. Well, and look, to be fair, 3% was other, and that might have been the American people. Bob McDonnell is not on your side. He talks a great game here, and that's what I'm worried about, and he's going to deceive a lot of people into thinking he's on your side. He's not. He's on the side of corporate America, and all of his actual proposals and the proposals of the Republican Party are meant to protect the richest people in America, the corporations that took taxpayer money in these bailouts and are taking the same risks and will take taxpayer money again if Bob McDonnell and his Republican Party friends win. Unfortunately, a lot of Democrats are also on that side. But if you get frustrated by the Democrats, I'm 100% with you. But don't make the mistake of thinking that the Republicans are on your side, because they most certainly are not. Look at where the money is. All right. One last thing. Tomorrow, I'll be talking about similar things on Dylan Radigan's program on MSNBC at 4 o'clock Eastern. So, we'll put out notices about that, et cetera, but keep that in mind. Let's come back with Anna. She's a woman. Young Turks. Sign up for membership on theyoungturks.com and get the whole 3-hour show plus an uncensored postgame.